Hey everybody, welcome back to Wiki Sports. This is At the Buzzer, and we're joined as always by Jack Tiernan. Jack, I almost feel like I don't have to ask, but I will. How you doing?
We're feeling great. You knew
Yeah.
that though. You're right. You don't have to ask. I think could be better. Honestly, we're feeling really good.
Yeah, so the Celtics sweep the Nets. All this nervousness, trepidation we had going into the series that hey, the Nets are a 7 seed, but they're much better than a 7 seed. Didn't really matter because the Celtics are the only team that swept anybody in this opening round. So, Jack, what'd you see in Game 4?
I, I mean, aside from a really bad call on Jason Tatum for his sixth
Ter-
foul,
terrible
um,
call.
I, terrible call, terrible call. Lots of, I mean, Scott Foster was reffing. We knew it was going
Mm-hmm.
to be interesting.
We did.
But I mean, overall, it was a lot of the same stuff that you saw before, except you noticed that KD was hitting his shots, and that's what made it a little bit scary, a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
contentious. Um, Kyrie basically after game one was a non-factor, and that was inclusive of game four.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see Ben Simmons at all anywhere. So everything you could have asked for. Um, the Celtics got the dub. Great hustle plays by Marcus and Al.
Mm-hmm.
I They have really stepped up this series. Not saying they weren't good the rest of the season, but they really have like kicked it up another level.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really fun to watch them support, and you get to see Rob Williams play a little bit more minutes as well. So overall, man, I mean, really fun to watch. Obviously, as a Celtics fan, probably Nets fans not so much. Probably very anxiety inducing. But I think, man, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I think that was a great sweep, especially on the Nets. To prove that we're really a title contender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the Nets obviously is a little different. James Harden was still there at the beginning of the season, but they were the team that a lot of people were picking to win a
Yeah.
title, and that obviously didn't happen. There was a really rocky season for the Nets, and we covered it a lot because of
Yeah.
the Kyrie connection. Kyrie not playing for like the first like fourth of the season, and then getting in there, and then James Harden wanting out, and then getting Ben Simmons, and that was the whole thing. I mean, what what do you think really was like the biggest thing that went wrong for the Nets this season, not just in the series, but if you can kind of encapsulate it?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to really pick, I think it's a similar problem to the Lakers where you've got a bunch of ring chasers who aren't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily like a good fit together. Um, Whereas the Celtics really are playing like team basketball. I don't mean to
Yes.
compare them obviously, but it's easy to do because we
Mm-hmm.
watch the Celtics who maybe, whereas individual players you would probably say overall you take KD and Kyrie over at least Jalen Brown, maybe not Jason Tatum anymore because he's been elite. But I
Yeah.
mean, you talk about sheer star power, and you're taking the Nets over the Celtics any day, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much. I think you talk about fit with the Nets, and that's because you have dudes like Andre Drummond, who you got in trade from the Nets, Seth Curry, um, Kyrie. You have a bunch of dudes on the floor who are like 6'1" and below
Mm-hmm.
against like that includes Bruce Brown, for example, who's a 6'3" power forward, which is
Mm-hmm.
really below average for that position, and
Right.
you're just a really undersized team. So you look at a lot of that. You look at a lot of just the general like how these guys play styles work together, and it's kind of tough to pair KD and Kyrie, to be honest with you. Um, Kyrie's more of an ISO guy, and KD is obviously a scorer, but I think Kyrie, because of his being ISO, takes the volume away from KD. It's
Mm-hmm.
not as symbiotic as it could be, I think. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's where we're at. I think honestly, it comes down to fit for the Nets. You could even Kyrie said this, and I hate to agree with him, but I think it really has something to do with just like how long they've been together too, right? Like they had a pretty big blockbuster trade that sent James Harden away,
Mm-hmm.
basically for Seth Curry and Andre Drummond for the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
season because Ben Simmons didn't play. So,
Right.
I mean, I think it really comes down to fit and then knowing how each other play, and
Mm-hmm.
that's really what did them in.
Yeah, and so I mean, kind of talking about that trade. Ben Simmons did not play this series. We thought he was going to, especially in Game 4.
Yeah,
I mean, it was not even like, oh, we think he's going to play. It was like Ben Simmons is going to play in Game 4, and then the night before, Sunday night, we hear his back's acting up. He didn't play. He wasn't on the bench. I mean, Jack, this has to be like aside. Ben Simmons clearly is going through stuff. We saw an article today that's saying that the pressure of playing perhaps is a trigger for his back pains, which not great if you're a Nets fan
no,
in terms of getting. But like How big of a disaster is this trade, Jack?
I mean, like you make a good point. We just said it. I think basically this trade was James Harden, um, and a couple first round picks for Seth Curry
Yeah,
and Andre
who's a good
Drummond.
basketball player. We like Seth Curry
That's
on this
great.
show.
Oh,
Yeah, but
absolutely. Love Seth Curry actually. I when he was on the Mavs, man, I was rooting for him hard. I wanted him to get that playing time. But
right,
you're now it's like okay, you have to hate him because he's on the Nets, and we hate the Nets, so
right.
it's tough. But I think you're right. I think Andre Drummond's a free agent now, so basically nothing. You give away a bunch of first round picks, or I'm sorry, Philly. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Philly gave first round picks
To get
Brooklyn.
Harden.
That's my fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my fault.
No, no,
Um, I think, I mean, Philly's going to be a title contender for at least a couple of years to come with Joel and Harden, as long as, knock on wood, none of them get hurt.
yeah, we'll see
So
what happens.
those
They're in a fight with Toronto at the moment.
they are, which is surprising.
Which is very surprising. But not to detract. Sorry.
Oh no, totally fair. I'm rooting for Toronto naturally.
Of course,
Like, I don't.
yeah.
I would much rather. I don't know. That's tough. We don't have to play whoever wins that anyway until the next round, hypothetically.
Right.
Um, but I don't know, man. I think that trade was definitely a big miss. Even with those first round picks, they convey in like the end of the first round. You're not really getting a lot of impact players then anyway. I don't know, man. It just seems like the Nets really flubbed yet another trade. And the last one that comes to mind is with the Celtics. So ironically, we talked about this, right? The picks that they traded to the Celtics are the dudes that just beat them and eliminated them out of playoff contention.
It's so unfortunate for them, but I mean, it's the truth that the Celtics were able to take a trade that at the time was kind of disappointing because we were giving up our two best players, Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce. It sucked. It was not fun to see them go, but it was at the same time like, okay, this is a good trade on paper. Like, if they can pull off some good picks, it's going to be worth it. And I mean, also the trade lasted for years. It's just so
really
many
did.
years, just getting so many picks from the Nets. So unfortunate there. And I'm sure they wish, as an organization and their fans probably wish that trade didn't happen because I don't know. I think within 2 years, both Pierce and Garnett were off the Nets. So yeah, it was it was a disaster for them. But I mean, okay, so this is kind of a bit of legacy talk. A little, what Steve Nash? He's getting fired, right?
I don't think so. I'm not
Don't
gonna lie
think
to you.
so. Okay.
I don't think so. I think he should. I think he should. I think it was very obvious that he was blatantly outcoached by somebody who was his assistant last year. Honestly, which is that's
not
nice
great.
take.
Yeah.
No. I would be. I mean, you notice it in the post-game media conferences with Kyrie and KD particularly, where they talk about how the GMs have done a great job and how the players have done a great job. They don't mention Steve at all. So it's really going to be interesting to see. I think you're right. I think he deserves to be fired. I think he should be fired. I don't think he gets fired. I don't know why. There's just something in me that says, like, no, Steve Nash is sticking around.
Gotta run it back.
Run it back. With now, I think there is some validity to what Kyrie said in that now they've all been around each other for a little bit, assuming there are no big roster moves to like shake up the team mid-season next year, and assuming Kyrie plays all year or KD plays all year. They're both getting up there in age, right? They can be injury prone, the older you get. But I think they are definitely a better team than they were this year, even if they ran it back with all the same dudes, which I don't think they will. I think they know they need size, but yeah, for sure.
So, on the same kind of topic, KD, this is a bad showing for KD.
Yeah.
Before he joined the Warriors, it was kind of like KD is not a good playoff competitor. Like he doesn't have it in the clutch. Of course, he won a few titles with the Warriors. Good for them. Best team in the league, and he joined them. Whatever. We won't get into that. But I feel in a tough season for Russell Westbrook, a little bit of vindication, probably a little bit of happiness to probably see his former teammate go down. But as far as you're concerned, is Kevin Durant the best basketball player in the world, or is this over?
And that's a really tough question. I think
Following the assumption that he was, a lot of people were saying it this year that he passed LeBron because LeBron was getting older. And I think in the regular season that's fair, but I'm sure people in the comments and stuff are like, no, he was never the best player, but let's just play it out. Do you think he's lost that title from this series?
Yeah, I think you make a good point. I think he definitely surpassed LeBron this year. If I'm being totally honest, and I'm again, like you said, I'm sure we'll hear it, but I think he passed LeBron. I think LeBron was the best. I do think he takes a couple steps back because of this. I think now you have to look back at LeBron and say, look at all the things LeBron did in spite of the other people that were on his team. And you want to talk about a bad fit? That's a bad fit team. Just all around,
Disaster.
honestly. Yeah, not good. And I mean, I think you got to look at Giannis, honestly, as probably the best player in the league right now, potentially in the world. I think, but it's tough because KD has the shooting and Giannis does not. But Giannis can drive to the basket like nobody's business and draw a foul like nobody's business. And KD does not as much. He's still good at it, but he's not Giannis level by any means. I don't think it's as clear cut as it was before because of how bad we lost KD, or we saw KD lose his shooting stroke basically. Like he could not hit anything. It was insane.
Yeah, it was really wild. As Ryan said in the last episode, he was shook.
He was shook. He was so shook. It was a shell of himself, basically. It was hard to watch because it didn't look like KD, and I think everyone could say that. You saw him out there, and you watch him like brick some threes, and you're like, wait a minute, like this is Kevin Durant. It didn't come off that way. It was actually absurd to watch him, and I don't want to say that the Celtics got a lucky break because I think a lot of that is because of how well they guarded him.
Of course,
between Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Grant Williams did an excellent job. Al Horford, Marcus Smart even put some pressure on him.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think that was. He gave credit to the Celtics defense, but I almost think it goes beyond that. It was just so. He was stymied so hard. I still can't wrap my head around it because it's so not Kevin Durant.
No, it was a very, very strange series, and credit Jason Tatum, who not only offensively where he was like our best offensive player, he was just tenacious on defense, just so great, and he's really developed into just an amazing player, and we're lucky that they didn't go for what all the experts were saying to do mid-season and trade either him or Jaylen Brown because when Tatum did foul out, which was bullshit as we already said, Jaylen Brown stepped up so hard, and he stepped up in a lot of these fourth quarters, so I think we've put to rest this notion that they can't play together. Do you think that's fair?
100%. I think so. They proved it the entire second half of the season. They are coming out to the media saying, no, like we're here, we're invested, we're going to play together. And they showed it. That's what matters. They backed it up with their actions, Yeah. You look at their scoring numbers. Jaylen Brown came up huge a couple of times with a nice couple of shots, facilitations even. I don't know, man. I think anybody who said that mid-season is probably looking back and saying like this was bad. This was a bad take. And this is exciting now because I think before these media-driven narratives came up mid-season, they probably were, not sure of who was going to be the best. Like they each wanted to be the best, kind of like an ego battle, honestly.
Of course. Yeah,
and then you get, understandably, right? They're both good dudes. They're good players. I think they finally put those aside, and I think they really worked it out, and they really just got to the bottom of it, and are playing very well because of it. Yeah,
no, totally agree. So, how big of an advantage do you think rest will be? I mean, we saw Jason Tatum holding his back at one point. We saw Jaylen Brown holding his hamstrings. They're gonna have a little bit of time here to rest up before the next series, most likely against the Bucks. Yeah. How big of an advantage do you think that will be for them?
I think it'll be huge, honestly, especially for guys like Al and Rob Williams. I think Al, he's getting up there in age, and Rob is obviously coming off the meniscus issue. So I think the rest is paramount right now because you have the Bucks who are already fatigued somehow, and I think against the Bulls.
It's always hard to go on a title run and then follow it right back up, but yeah.
It absolutely is. So the fact that they're even playing as well as they are right now is great. But Chris Middleton is hurt with an MCL sprain for who knows how long. He's out for at least the rest of this series against Chicago.
Yeah.
I did just see that Zach LaVine is on the COVID-19 list, so
Mm-hmm.
Chicago loses another key player. Probably means Bucks take it this next game.
Yep.
But I think you're right. I think it becomes Bucks Celtics. Celtics will have a couple extra days of rest. The NBA is pretty good about giving a few days buffer in between series, but I still think that extra day is going to be huge. Truly,
Yeah.
that's all it is.
Yeah. Right. So I'm so looking forward to that series after
Me too.
after this one. What we're gonna see, the Celtics again. They don't have an easy road. They're gonna have to play the Bucks. If they beat the Bucks, they're probably gonna have to play the Heat, who are also like really great. And then probably gonna have to play the Golden State Warriors if we're looking all the way ahead there. So
Yes.
if they pull this off, it'll be potentially the greatest playoff run in Celtics history. I don't know about like all time, but it'll be up there. I feel so. We'll see what happens. I'm just enjoying the ride. This team is so fun to watch.
They are. Their defensive tenacity and offensive just willingness to make the right play now, it seems, is just
Their passing is
so
is
fun.
great. Yeah.
Passing is a blast. It's so much fun to watch. Just
Yeah.
stick Grant Williams in the corner and just pass it around to him and we'll be fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, just a great system they have there, and just a bunch of unselfish players like who are facilitating each other and getting the best out of each other, and it's really great to watch.
It is. It's a blast.
All right, did we touch on everything? I feel like we pretty thoroughly covered
Oh yeah.
this one.
I think so. The only thing that's funny is I meant to mention this as a little fun fact. The Celtics, in order to get to the finals, will have to play the three teams that eliminated them in the past years. So that's the Nets,
Ooh.
Bucks, and then the Heat in order.
I like that.
So I think it's pretty sweet. It's pretty satisfying. Could be very satisfying in the end.
Yes, of course. So we'll see. That's very fun. That's something to
It
keep
is.
an
It
eye on.
is.
All right, Jack. Where can they find you online?
Best place to find me is on Twitter, and that's @Jack_Tiernan. Go there for all of my NBA takes, especially throughout the playoffs. You can also follow my disc golf account on Instagram, and that's @JackDiscGolfs. Playing a bunch of tournaments. We'll have a bunch of content up there. So follow me those places.
Awesome. You'll follow him there. You can follow the channel on everywhere. Twitter at Wicked Good Sport and at WG Everything. Instagram, Wicked Good Everything. Twitch.tv/Wicked Everything. TikTok, search Wicked Good Sports. Search Wicked Good Everything. Jack, thank you so much for your time.
Of course, Brian. Thanks for having me.
We'll see you all in the next one.